In this video, I am going to be talking about one of my favorite types of antiques, and that is the carriage clock. I have loved carriage clocks ever since I was a child. They have always captivated me. I just love the simple construction, the simple design. I love the beautiful polished brass cases and the glass panels. I love the fact that you can see all the way through a carriage clock and look at all the gears and wheels of the movement ticking away inside. So in this video I'm going to be talking a bit about carriage clocks and a bit about their history. I bought my first carriage clock about a year ago as a present for myself, and since then I've acquired another one, which is this little one here. I'll talk about that in a minute. The carriage clock was invented in the 1790s by famous watchmaker Abraham Louis Breguet, who was one of the most famous watchmakers of the late 18th, early 19th century. Some say that Breguet invented the carriage clock at the request of Napoleon Bonaparte himself, who needed a small, compact, and portable and accurate timekeeper to carry with him on his military campaigns. Clocks of the 18th century were notoriously inaccurate. They would jam, they would slow down, they needed a pendulum to help them keep time. Pocket watches were not much better. And before the second half of the 1700s, most clocks were pretty useless. The most accurate clocks of the day were the marine chronometers, such as those made by John Harrison. But in the domestic residential clock market, the clock that still reigned supreme for the most part was the long case pendulum or grandfather clock. There was no such thing as a portable carry-around timepiece. That wasn't a pocket watch. So the carriage clock was invented to bridge the gap in the market, and this is the result. So the carriage clock remained very popular from the 1790s all the way more or less to the present day. The vast majority of them were made in France. Some were made in England. Some of the modern ones are made in China. But the most and the best were almost all French. The French made these in ridiculous quantities, millions and millions and millions and millions of them. And they sent them to the United States, they sent them to Canada, they sent them to Australia, they sent them to England, they even sent them to China. And they were sold by all the big luxury retail brands, so Tiffany and Company, and Cartier, and all the big famous luxury brand retailers would stock and sell carriage clocks. And carriage clocks were extremely popular and extremely fashionable in the Victorian era. You had all kinds of features. You had alarms, you had minute repeaters, which would strike the hours, the quarters, and the minutes. You would have striking clocks, which would strike the hours, the half hours, and if it was a particularly advanced clock, would also strike the quarters. And they were just amazing little machines. Now, when you bought a Carriage clock brand new 100 years ago, it would look more or less like what you have here. It would have a brass case with glass panels on it. Not all of them had glass panels. Some of them had like porcelain panels with decorations on them. And you would get a double-headed winding key. Now this is to wind the clock and to set the time. And you would also get a carry case to go along with your Carriage clock. If you buy most antique clocks today, they will not have the original carry case. Some do, not all of them. Carry cases were made of wood, and they were usually covered in leather and lined inside with felt or velvet, and then there would be a little carry handle. So you would, you can see here, this is where the handle would come out over the top and then down the other side into here. So you would have a little button, you press it, lid opens, and here you can see the lining inside. So basically what would happen is your clock would pop into here, like that. And then the key would slot in the side like that, go in there, and then this would close over the top. That's how it would work. And then when you reached your destination, you could take the clock out. If you wanted to keep your clock protected, but you still wanted to use it, then you could lift out the panel at the front, and you could see the time through the little window. This is plastic. Originally these would have been panels of glass. So I'll take the clock out and pop it back. All mechanical Carriage clocks had 7-day movements or mechanisms inside. So that means you wind it up and it would run for 7 days. Well, actually, it would run for 8 days, but you wind it once a week. So how you do that is in the back, you open the door, and in here you have two arbors, two axles. This is for setting the time, this is for winding the clock. And you have a double-headed key. The small one is for setting the time, the big one is for winding the clock. So to wind it, you pop this on there and you turn it like so to wind it up. And as you turn, the big mainspring barrel here will turn and wind up the spring inside, and that is what powers the clock. To adjust the speed of the clock, you have the escapement up the top. This is the platform escapement. Sitting on its platform where it cannot be affected by jolting and bumping and swaying. When the carriage clock was in a carriage, being transported from place to place. These were traveling clocks. They were supposed to keep time while on the move. Most carriage clocks were of this size. This is a conventional sized carriage clock. You could get ones which were larger than this, and you could also get ones which were much smaller. So that's what this is. This is a little miniature carriage clock with a miniature carriage clock key, and it is exactly the same as the other one. It's just smaller. So here we have a conventional, and then here we have a miniature, and if you can find one, you can even get ones which are sub-miniature, and they're even smaller than this. So this clock here on the right was made about 1905, 1910, made in France. And this one on the left, also made in France. This is about 1950. And I just think they're beautiful little timepieces. So yeah, this one I bought at auction. And this one I got from a local flea market, and I just think it's really cute. Now, when I got it, there were actually two clocks. There was this one and another one, which was this size. But I decided to take this one just because I thought it was cuter and, you know, a little bit rarer, a little nicer. It's nice to have something small. So yeah, the carriage clock remained very popular throughout the 1800s. Like I said, retailed by many famous luxury retailers, and they remain popular to this day. And I'm very lucky to own these two. If you want to find out a bit more about the history of carriage clocks and a bit more about them, then please visit my blog. I've got a couple of articles there about them, and I hope that you will enjoy reading them. The link to my blog is in the description below, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching.